Hi, I'm Adam Seifer, a partner with the law firm of SeiferFlatow in Charlotte, North Carolina, and head of the firm's DWI and Criminal Defense Department. I'm here today to discuss what your options are if you've refused to blow for purposes of a DWI, or driving while impaired case. First off, I want to distinguish between the handheld portable breath test on the side of the road versus the big tabletop machine known as the intoxilizer that usually comes after arrest. The pre-arrest handheld portable test is only used to determine whether the officer is going to arrest you or not. The number result of that test is inadmissible in your case, and if you refuse that test, nothing happens to your license. So for purposes of this video, I'll be focusing on the intoxilizer machine at the station. So after you've been arrested on suspicion of DWI, the police officer probably asked you to provide a breath sample on a large machine called an intoxilizer. This machine is used to measure your alcohol concentration levels. Before the test can be administered, the officer reads you your rights, including the right to refuse the test, but if you do so, you'll be subject to a 1-year license suspension for the refusal. DWI is considered an implied consent offense. This means that when you drive on North Carolina roads, you're basically agreeing to consent to a chemical analysis of your breath if an officer asks you to do so. If you do not consent, then DMV has the authority to take your license. So, how does this work in real life? When you refuse to blow, the process is started when the officer sends a statement, sworn under oath, to the Department of Motor Vehicles notifying them of your refusal. DMV then sends you a letter notifying you that your license will be suspended for 1 year. Now DMV mails the letter exactly 10 days before the suspension is scheduled to begin. The good news is that you have a right to request a hearing to challenge this refusal and 1-year suspension, and if you do so, the suspension will not begin until you have had your hearing and only if the refusal is upheld. However, this hearing must be requested before the suspension starts, or your right to do so will be lost. DMV sends a letter to your last known address. So since they only put it in the mail 10 days before the suspension start date, there probably won't be a lot of time to request the hearing before the suspension starts. Therefore, I recommend making sure that DMV has your current address and that you're checking your mail for that letter on a daily basis. If you do not actually receive the letter for whatever reason, or do not get the request for hearing filed with DMV prior to the suspension starting, you lose your right to challenge the 1-year revocation of your license. This is significant because this suspension does not allow for any limited driving privileges for at least the first 6 months. Then, if you lose your actual DWI case, you'll lose your license for an additional year for the conviction. So in theory, you could potentially end up with these 2 suspensions running back to back for a total of 2 years. However, if you request the hearing to challenge the refusal within the 10-day window, your license will not be revoked pending the outcome of the hearing. It will often be several months before the hearing for the refusal takes place, so even if you lose the hearing, your refusal suspension can at least potentially run at the same time as a suspension for being found guilty of the DWI. Instead of having 2 separate suspensions, the 2 can essentially run at the same time, leaving you with less total time without a valid license. The letter notifying you of the refusal suspension from DMV can come at any time after the arrest and the refusal, and often within days. Therefore, you should contact a DWI attorney as soon as possible so they can make sure you don't lose your window of opportunity to challenge the refusal. If you've been charged with DWI, and especially if you have refused to provide a breath sample, please call me and the law firm of SeiferFlatow today at 704-512-0606 for a free consultation.